We're in like smack dab in the middle of our series, by the way. We've been walking through the book of James. I think that you guys walked through James in the fall. So hopefully you won't just get bored, because I'm going to tell you, I've read James a bunch and I'm not bored with it. Like, there's still this same lesson that we're going to do tonight, I could do next Wednesday, and I think I'd still get some stuff out of it, especially because we're talking about our big fat mouths. Ooh, ooh, ooh. It's a tough one. How many words does the average person speak in 24 hours? Now, if we're on a curve, it is people like me who set the bar really high, right? And it's people like Brent and like my husband, who they're at the low end of the curve. And so if we were to look at the median range, that medium is 16,000 words a day, which for me is probably closer to 20, 25, I don't know. I know that I set the bar really high. The average person speaks 16,000 words in a day. A female, which isn't shocking, speaks slightly more than a guy. A woman's going to speak about 16,215 words. Man, right around 15. People speak 941 words per hour on average during a typical day. It's kind of a lot. And the stats that I got, they're going to check out mostly. Like, I checked out 2 or 3 different statistics, and this kind of all just seems to check out right around. Bobby, if Brent sets the bar down here, you're in the basement, my friend. You're in the gutter, in the absolute basement, and I'm in the clouds. But this works beautifully because people like you like to listen. People like me like to talk. People like me need people to listen. But what's beautiful about people like you, Bobby, is that when you do speak, we know it's going to be good. And so we're going to pay close attention. Does that make sense? Like, it's a good thing. Jordan, you're the same way. Jordan he's not just, at home, is it different, Alyssa? Jordan's not generally just spouting off a bunch of stuff. But when you do speak, it's going to be good. It's going to be intelligent and wise. And so we want to pay close attention to that. We're constantly talking, and I think digitally too. I think digital counts because we're talking with our thumbs, we're talking with our texts, and digitally. The constant talking gives us a large capacity to bless or curse. Now, when I say curse, I don't mean cussing, okay? We didn't curse down where I was from. You cussed. And you know what I mean? So when the Bible here is talking about blessing or cursing, it's not about saying 4-letter words. It's about saying things that are not edifying and helpful. It's about, and we'll get into that a little bit more. I'll tell you guys real quick. When our children started, I think I might have told you, when they started public school, Lonnie gave them a cussing lesson. Because and I'll explain what a cussing lesson was, but he sat down outside with the kiddies when Kenny was going to school, and he sat down on a 5-gallon bucket, and Kenny was about to go to school. He was about to hear some words he'd never heard in his life, and so Lonnie sat down and he said the words, and I wasn't there. I didn't want to be a part of the cussing lesson, but we knew he needed to understand the words that he was about to hear. So he said Lonnie's like, you're going to hear the SHIT word. You're going to hear the ASS word. You're going to hear all these words, and here's what those words mean. And here's why we don't use them. Partly because we're intelligent, and we know that there's always better words to use, but we want our words to glorify God. And so that way, when Kenny got to school, he understood the words that he was about to hear, so he didn't just think it was okay to say those things. And so words, the constant talking gives us a great capacity to either bless people with our words or curse them with our words. Here's our key thought for tonight. Words can be either a blessing or a curse to the people around us. So grab your Bible. You need your Bible tonight. You're going to need that Bible. Wednesdays, I'm going to tell you, I love a digital Bible, but Wednesdays, it's easier to navigate a paper Bible, I think. And so if you're not in the habit yet of bringing a paper Bible to Wednesday, it's time to start. But I do think still, like I said, a digital Bible, I'm never going to criticize people for that. All right, let's turn to Proverbs 18:21. We're going to be kind of flipping around a few different, and sometimes you'll notice that I'll have the verses in there, but sometimes it's good for us to just open it in the actual Bible and be able to see some of the different translations. So I have got the New Living Translation right here. Anyone, Denise, what do you have on you? You got the NIV, good. What else? Does someone have something different than this? You got the Message up, okay? The Passion Translation, New King James, okay, super. According to Proverbs 18:21, words have the power to blank or blank. Let me read it out of the New Living. The words have the power to do these two things. The tongue can bring death or life. Those who love to talk will reap the consequences. So what does the tongue have the power to bring?
Death and life.
Death and life. It has the power to kill or give death, right? Flip a few pages back to chapter 12, verse 18. Oh, well, we'll do that for this one. 12, verse 18. Let me read it out of the NLT. Some people make cutting remarks, but the words of the wise bring health. Denise, you want to read yours? And Corey's got a mic. Thank you, Corey. Because we know that we've got some brothers and sisters that are not always able to watch, to be here, we want to be able to, for there not to be that awkward dead space. So if he puts in a mic in your face, just roll with it.
Hi, Roger.
Are Roger and Robin online? We love Roger and Robin. Okay, let's hear it, Denise.
Reckless words pierce like a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing.
Brings healing. Who else? Let me hear it out of the Passion, Kimberly. Read it really loud.
Reckless words.
Okay. Smarty pants.
Reckless words are like the thrust of a sword, cutting remarks meant to stab and to hurt. But the words of the wise soothe and heal.
Ooh, that's good. That's good. So, according to Proverbs 12:18, words have the power to blank or blank. Kill or give life, to wound or heal, right? They have the power to either wound us or give us life. Let's do this. Let's see how creative you are again. I like creativity. Examples through history of powerful people using powerful words. Words matter, don't they? Words are weapons in the hands of wrong people. Words are life in the power of healing people. Words matter. Words determine how we change things. Words direct our hearts. Words direct our actions. Can you think throughout history of some people who used their words? They were powerful, influential people. They used their words to bring healing or death. Hitler brought death.
Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King totally brought healing and life through words, man, and through some actions, but mostly his actions were good actions. They were peaceful protests, but he used his words to bring healing and life. Who else? Okay, say that again. Tell everyone who this is. Okay, first Israeli prime minister, a woman prime minister in Israel. She said some really powerful things too. Like she's still quoted to this day. Abraham Lincoln? Yeah. What? Corrie ten Boom? Yeah. Powerful words. Can we think of any politicians in our modern day? Who? George W. Bush. Yeah. George W. Bush, after 9/11, his words galvanized a nation to action, didn't they? His words, he used his words for positive. We've got other illustrations in our modern day where people use their words to stir up contention and strife. That's a person's opinion. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that it's an opinion when people rise up and riot. And that's both sides of the aisle. Yeah, both sides of the aisle. You've got people that are using their words as weapons instead of using their words to heal and to bring life. Yeah, Matt.
One thing that I've heard over the years is people constantly pushing that it's my right.
Yeah, we're pushing our rights, but the gospel is not about defending our rights. The gospel is about laying down our rights, isn't it? I mean, we don't like that. We want to protect our, and I'm not saying I don't want my civil liberties. I want to protect my civil liberties as much as you do. But the kingdom way is upside down, isn't it? Whereas I want to fight for my right to party or to do whatever. I want to fight for my rights. I know the people in this room, the age bracket of the people in this room, we want to fight and defend our rights, and yet kingdom, upside down kingdom looks different than that. Yeah. Yeah, if you want to be the greatest, you got to be the least. Let's look at our key text tonight. We're going to look at the first 12 verses of James chapter 3. Paying close attention, right? Even if you've got some people you pay better attention with their eyes closed. Some people you pay better attention as you read along. Do what you need, but I'm going to start reading in verse 1. Dear brothers and sisters, I got to stop for a second. James keeps doing this. James, over and over, reminds us who the audience is. It's brothers and sisters. He's writing to the people of the church, to the people of faith. So, dear brothers and sisters, not many of you should become teachers in the church, for we who teach will be judged more strictly. Indeed, we all make many mistakes. For if we could control our tongues, we would be perfect and could also control ourselves in every other way. We can make a large horse go wherever we want by means of a small bit in its mouth. And a small rudder makes a huge ship turn wherever the pilot chooses to go, even though the winds are strong. In the same way, the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches. But a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And the tongue is a flame of fire. It is a whole world of wickedness, corrupting your entire body. It can set your whole life on fire, for it is set on fire by hell itself. What a bold statement. Verse 7, people can tame all kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, and fish, but no one can tame the tongue. It is restless and evil, full of deadly poison. Sometimes it praises our Lord and Father, and sometimes it curses those who have been made in the image of God. And so blessing and cursing come pouring out of the same mouth. Surely, my brothers and sisters, this is not right. Does a spring of water bubble out with both fresh water and bitter water? Does a fig tree produce olives or a grapevine produce figs? No. And you cannot draw fresh water from a salty spring. Powerful passage, isn't it? So much symbolism, illustration that James is using here. He starts with a warning, the warning that not many of us should look to be teachers in the church. But people do. There are people who just seek that role and want to do that. But I am keenly aware that the pressure and the weight of standing up before you and teaching God's word, when I read a passage like that, it's sobering to me. Because I'm not just being held accountable for the words I speak in my casual conversations, but I recognize Sunday morning there was over 100 people in this place listening to the words that were coming out of my mouth. And I'm accountable to God for what I say. And so that's a warning. Any thoughts before we move on from that? All right. Thank you. Kimberly, you're precious. Let's look at these next few verses. 6 powerful illustrations. We're going to be kind of digging through verses 3 through 12 now. James here, he doesn't mince words. What he does is he strings together a series of metaphors because James is a good writer. James has got some writing chops, and he's showing it here. He strings together a series of metaphors to etch in our hearts and minds the reality that our words are shockingly powerful. So between verses 3 through 5, we see two pictures of how our tongue has the capacity to control and direct. What are the two pictures that he's using? The horse and the bit in its mouth, and a rudder. How interesting this bridge collapsed a few weeks ago. I don't know what went wrong, but I don't think it was a tiny rudder. I think it was something much bigger. But what damage that one ship that loses power, what damage, whether it's nefarious doings, I don't know. We'll find that out in a few years after the investigations go on. But he uses the picture of a horse with a bit in its mouth. Have any of you ever actually seen one? Yeah, I mean, like, how big is the bit? I literally don't know. About the size of its mouth? So it's a bar that goes through its mouth? Who knew that I had a house full of equestrians with me? I was a city girl, through and through, a city girl. A horse and a bit and a boat with a rudder. And I know probably more about a boat rudder than I would a horse bit, but what a tiny degree difference that you make in a rudder of a boat or a ship to make a huge degree. Like 1 degree can make the difference of you going to the right destination and the wrong destination. In verse 6 through 8, we see two pictures of how the tongue can cause harm and damage. What are those two pictures that we saw? We saw fire. No? If we're looking at two pictures of how our tongue can cause harm and damage. The very end of verse 8. Deadly poison. Like deadly poison. Something you can't even see. How he uses the imagery of some huge grand fire that you can see, but deadly poison, something you can't even see, can't be traceable. You put it in someone's liquid in a water bottle that can do harm and damage. And isn't that like our words? That our words can either be big and grandiose like a fire, or our words sometimes can cause just as much harm, and they can be seemingly invisible. Have you ever had someone spread a rumor about you that is hidden, where no one sees it really, but that rumor can cause damage that has rippling effects, can't it? So when I love that he uses both of those pictures, a grand fire and invisible poison. Our words have the capacity to do harm, whether it's grand or not seen by many, many people. In verse 9 through 12, we see two pictures of how the tongue can contradict our witness. Look at that, verse 9 through 12. Let me read that one more time. Sometimes, and we're looking for how can it contradict our witness? Sometimes it praises our mouth. It praises our Lord and Father, and sometimes it curses those who've been made in the image of God. And so blessing and cursing come pouring out of the same mouth. Surely, my brothers and sisters, this isn't right. Listen close, verse 11 and 12. Does a spring of water bubble out with both fresh water and bitter water? Does a fig tree produce olives or a grapevine produce figs? No. And you can't draw fresh water from a salty spring. What are the two pictures that he's using here? Fresh water. He's using water. Fresh water and salt water. What was the other one that he was using? Plants. He's using produce, isn't he? That our mouth, and this is one of the, every now and then I have verses that I've heard my whole life, and so I'll say every now and then to my kids when I'll say, oh, blessings and cursings coming from the same mouth. Brethren, this ought not be. Because that's the King James. That's how I memorized it. Our words can contradict our witness. Y'all, we've seen that over the last few years. I had a phone conversation with someone the other day. They were ranting about masks. Okay. And then I'll have other people that rant about masks on the other end. Do we really, like, is that really what we want to be known for? You know what I mean? Like, do I really want, when I die, do I really want to be known as the anti-vaxxer or the vaxxer? I don't want that. I don't want to be known by that. And I'm not saying we don't take a stand. I'm saying that I don't have to take a stand with the bullhorn. Right? Things that don't have eternal significance, I don't have to make that the thing that I am known for. There are literally churches and pastors that are known for their hate speech, for how vitriolic and hateful they are. And when I say this, I'm not saying about churches that take a bold stand. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying churches that take a vitriolic verbal stand where we curse the darkness instead of shining a light. Here's the question. How do careless words spoken by Christians harm the reputation of the church and, by extension, Jesus Christ? The world's watching us. Yep.
I have a good example of this.
Come on, Jordan.
I was watching a YouTube video about this guy named Andrew Callahan or something like that. He's an interviewer, but he was doing a podcast, and he was talking about the time he went across the nation hitchhiking from one end to the other as like an 18-year-old guy. And he said, he was talking about how he was amazed at how nice all people were all over the country. And he started talking about, but then there were those minivans with the fish symbol on the back, you know, the one? And they'd have a whole family of people in there. And, you know, you'd think those would be the people that would pull over and give you a ride. But they would, like, stop and they'd yell curses at me. They'd say, get a job, hippie. And they'd, like, throw stuff at me. And I'm like, oh, what a terrible witness. You know, just thinking about that. Like, our words can spoil the witness of every good thing you do. You know, just one careless word.
Yeah.
One mistake, and the world's going to see it. Because they're worried about us Christians now, and they're like, well, what are they going to do next? Who are they going to, shine a light on and say they're wrong, they're wrong, they're wrong, instead of doing what they should be doing and trying to say, hey, this is, out of love, say this is the way we should act.
Yeah.
Because they're shining the light. They're looking.
Corey, what were you going to say? I saw the gleam in your eye, brother.
I think the biggest word the world uses against us is hypocrite.
Yeah, yeah.
As soon as you get labeled hypocrites, we're done.
Can I just tell you guys a horrible truth that happened about 2 months ago? It was a Sunday morning, and I had just gone to Schnucks to get your donuts, and I was coming down Main Street, getting ready to go to the roundabout, and I get up to the roundabout, getting ready to enter, and the person that was coming off of Independence, right? The person that's coming down Independence, and they're already in the roundabout, and they stop. They literally stop in the roundabout. And I did this, I'm like, and so they kept going, and I was like, oh crap, they're on their way to church. It's two of our women. And so I was just mortified. And so I pulled in, and I thought, I'm not going straight down Main Street. So I went the roundabout 2 more times because I was not going to pull in the church parking lot the same time these precious women pulled in the church parking lot. And I just thought, Lord, I just got to be more careful about my facial expressions when I'm driving down the street. Because not only can it be my own church people, but I am keenly aware when I'm out in public that who I represent. And I'm not just talking about I represent Livestream. I represent King Jesus. I represent the kingdom of God. Kimberly, you got a Livestream bumper sticker on your car, girl. Bill, so you better drive really, really good and be super kind to people.
They're on her car because she's driving it.
Yeah.
We're
Our,
pretty safe there.
our words are this whole idea of blessing and cursing coming out of the same mouth. We have a watching world, which, and I know I've told you this, but if I ever go car shopping, I wear a Livestream church shirt because it reminds me, Sandy, the last time I had to go in the DMV, I intentionally wore a Livestream church shirt. I know. I literally wore a Livestream church shirt because I needed to remind my face and my words and my attitude. You got to be nice. These women are just doing their job. You got to be nice. You represent Jesus. You represent the church. Oh, no. I'm not a mean people. I'm a nice people. But I have had moments at ours. Anyways.
Deal with some bureaucratic nonsense.
Yeah.
I said, I gotta have prayer first.
Yeah. Let's look at what Jesus teaches about the tongue. We're in James, but it's super important that we see what Jesus has to say too. We're going to look at Luke 6:43 through 45. Where do our words come from? No good tree bears bad fruit, nor does a bad tree bear good fruit. Each tree is recognized by its own fruit. People do not pick figs from thorn bushes or grapes from briars. A good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, and an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. The mouth speaks what the heart is full of. How does Jesus describe the relationship between the heart and the mouth? Here's the blanks there, guys. The heart is the motor of the mouth. That's just, when I was typing this stuff up there, I'm like, oh, motor mouth. And so I was like, when I read what Jesus said, the heart is the motor of the mouth. The motor is going to push it forward, right? The heart, what's inside the heart is the motor of the mouth. Words are powerful nuggets. Let's keep moving. We got a lot to do. God's words are powerful. Here's just a thought. I'm not going to read it all to you. God's words, the words of Jesus were so powerful that at creation, he literally can speak planets into existence. Literally speaking stars into the sky, right? We only see one or two times where Jesus actually curses something, and it was a unfruit-bearing tree. And he does it not just because he hates trees, but he does it because everything he did was for a purpose and a point. And he's teaching his disciples something in that moment. But Jesus spoke life. He spoke things into existence. His words were powerful. Your words, not as powerful as Jesus, right? Like my words are not going to put stars in the sky. Your words are not going to put planets into orbit, but your words have the power to speak light or darkness into the hearts of other people. They have the power to speak life or darkness into the hearts of other people. Do we use our words more often to bless rather than curse? Some really hard, that's a hard question. Our words and even sometimes our flippant words. Bill, you got something to say?
Yeah, in that, so psychological studies have found that less negative is way more powerful for individuals than more positive. You can get a pat on the back here and there, one or two of them, and you forget about them. But that negative word spoken to you stays with you so much harder.
Gotcha.
So when you have conversation with people, I've told my son before, try less negative. You don't have to lift everyone all the way up and be more positive, but less negative is actually more powerful than more positive.
Yeah. The statistics, if I remember right, it's for every negative comment, it's either 7 or 10. 7 to combat that one negative thing. So when I think about my own kids, y'all, I've not been a horrible mother. Okay, they're alive. They need counseling. You know, I've not done horrible, but my words haven't always built them up. My words, the other night I was on the phone with one of those children, and I said, you know what? I think we need to end this conversation before I say something that will be hurtful. Yeah, something that will harm you. And so I said, let's hang up and we'll talk in a little bit after I have time to process through the things that I just heard come out of your mouth. Let me process through those things. And we came back, we circled back to that conversation, but recognizing there are moments where if we're going to have a corrective conversation, there literally are moments where I will say, Lonnie, I need you to handle this, and I'm walking out of the room, and I will literally go into the bedroom, close the door, and put earbuds in, because I have had those moments where I've said, I need you to handle this. And then he was handling it, and he didn't handle it the way I thought he should have. And I opened that door, and I'm like, and another thing. Here's something else your daddy didn't say. I've learned. I'm growing. I'm still a work in progress, okay? And so, y'all know I'm going to be real with you. I'm not going to pretend to be something I'm not, because that's too hard. I won't remember what I pretended to be. So that's just who I am. But the idea that my words can curse, even when I don't mean it to be, even when my words are just so casually flippant, I might say something. I said one thing to the girls. This was years ago. One of them had... It's so simple, but they had a pimple that was just huge in the center of their forehead. Just because we talk so freely, we talk about all kinds of things like that, I'm like, it looks like you're a unicorn. They still talk to me about that. Oh, I'm a unicorn. Am I still a unicorn, Mom? Like, because I just was so casual with my words, not recognizing that my words have the power to do damage. And I don't want to always do damage control. I want the Lord to help me so that I can not always have to say I'm sorry. Don't you get tired of having to say you're sorry? My old pastor's wife in Nebraska, there was one day she said something to me. I was like, oh, that was brilliant. She said, you know what? I don't always say something because I don't want to have to apologize for it. So it's easier to just not say it than to have to apologize later, because she knew her conscience was so clear before God that if she said something out of place and wrong, she knew she'd have to say she's sorry. So it's just easier to sometimes shut up than to have to go back and apologize. So I'm trying to remember that. Let's read the following verses on this last column. Psalm 141:3. Set a guard over my mouth, Lord. Keep watch over the door of my lips. Psalm 21:23, whoever guards his mouth and tongue keeps his soul from trouble. Remember me telling you this was the verse that I forced myself to memorize as a teenager because I had a sass mouth. Whoever guards his mouth and tongue keeps his soul from trouble. How do we then reconcile these verses with what James claims? Remember, James says no one can tame the tongue. What's our part and what is God's part? Our part is recognizing that we have the problem. Corey, come on. Quick on your feet, man. We love you. Yeah.
I think our part is recognizing we have a problem.
Yeah. Because if we just read James's words, no one can tame the tongue. It's a deadly fire. It's like a ship. It's like, it's like a fire. It's like poison set on fire by hell. If we just read that and like we could be fatalistic. Well, yeah, might as well cut it out, put a mask on me, That's fatalism, isn't it? How do we reconcile these two verses? Any other thoughts?
We ask the Holy Spirit to help us.
We ask the Lord to help us. Set a guard over my mouth, Lord. Keep watch over the door of my lips. John MacArthur, in one of his commentaries I just read today, he said, I meant to bring the book in with me because it was kind of pithy and I wanted to get it right. He talked about how interesting that our tongue is gated behind our teeth, and our teeth are behind the wall of our mouth for a reason. Like God gave us two barriers, our teeth and our lips, our face, so that we could hold some stuff in. Any other thoughts? Yes. Miss Joanne's got something to say.
I married really young, and married into a family.
How young were you?
I was 16 and a half.
You got to add the half on that one.
Yes, you do. But anyway, I married into this family that they did not discipline the children. They let them do what they wanted to do, you know. And one day my mother-in-law said to me, Joanne, you don't say anything very often, but when you do, it cuts like a knife.
Oh. Those one-line daggers, those one-sentence daggers. Yeah. Lonnie would tell you that early in his adulthood, he had to learn how to, he's witty. Lonnie's witty and smart, and he's fast. Like he's a quick thinker, and I've never known this part of Lonnie. Thankfully, the Lord dealt with him before I had to deal with him or before I met him. But because the Lord's he's just a different person than what he talks about, what he used to be in college. But he was so witty and sharp with his tongue that without even knowing it, he could just cut somebody because he just so sharp. You ever know someone like that? That you kind of don't, I can think of one or two people like that in my own life that I am not comfortable around. I'm very guarded with my words because I don't feel like being lacerated by their quick wit and their tongue. And so it's easier to just kind of wall up than to have them shut me down or hurt me. You know what I'm saying? Those are people that aren't safe. And I'll tell you, that's not always bad. Like sometimes that is self-preservation, and sometimes that's okay. Now, I'm not a stuffer. Like if there's something bubbling in me, it's gonna come out. So I'm not one who can stuff things down very well. But I have learned with 2 or 3 people in my life, I'm not gonna be super vulnerable with them because I cannot. My heart, my soul can't deal with that type of lacerating tongue. Make sense? You probably know someone like that too, Corey.
You've noticed this about me. When it gets to when there's serious talk to be had, I'm very deliberate. There's a purpose to it.
Exhaustingly.
Yeah, and I'm all right with that because if you don't think out what you're saying, you're gonna end up hurting someone.
Yeah, and that is actually, Corey, that's one thing that I admire and respect about you is that you are so deliberate with your words. Like, you are really thinking before you speak, and that, like, whoever guards his mouth and tongue keeps his soul from trouble. So I
wish I did it more at home.
Christina, if you're watching, he said, I wish I did it more at home too. So he wished that he was slower to speak at home. So here, let's do this test real quick. And we'll talk it through, and you can do this on your own in our prayer time. Think about the way you speak to the following people. In general, would you consider your speech to be negative and discouraging or positive? Encouraging and life-giving? Rate yourself. And I just kind of put these ratings there. Poison. Are they just negative? Are they neutral? And I would almost challenge that. Neutral would be what I am with those 2 or 3 people that I'm guarded with. It's very neutral. I add nothing positive. I add nothing negative. They're not safe. Just neutral. Is it helpful or is it life-giving? And I put these different categories because the way we speak to our spouse, come on, sometimes because that's the person who loves us most, they're the one that we're most comfortable with, and it's easy to sometimes say things we shouldn't. Our children, whether they're young like Aoife or kind of adults like mine. How do we speak to our parent, our sibling, our coworker, a friend, or a best friend? Because don't you know, you speak different to just a friend than you do your best friend. I may vent and I may say some things and unload some stuff off my heart to my best friend. And it's maybe not always positive or helpful, or even a neighbor. Yesterday I was sitting at McDonald's doing some work and having some tea. And there was a man that was sitting behind me, and he was with an older gentleman and someone about his age. This guy was probably 35 or 40. And they were literally at the booth behind me. I could hear everything they said. And I'm working and I'm listening, and he, right off, his food was blankety blank, and this is cold, and he was not kind. I watched him go up. He had chewed his food, and he wanted to make a statement. He walked up, and the woman at the register, she could see him. He walked up, and he spit into the garbage can, and he went over, and he was not kind in his words to these people that make minimum wage. You know, like they're not rolling in the dough. They're working hard, making minimum wage. This is your McDonald's, Adam. So he makes a statement, and then he tells them, "This is no good. This is cold. Blank, blank." I don't think he cussed at them. He was cussing when he was sitting at the table, and then he went back to the table, and I heard more conversation. He was talking about, he was talking about the church that he had attended. He had stopped attending because he got burnt out helping those teenagers, because here he's going in there and they were just making him mad, and so he stopped teaching, he stopped going, but it was like blessing and cursing coming from the same mouth. It was confusing at best and sad at worst, like choose a lane. Choose a spigot. Turn the valve one way or the other. Curse or bless, but don't do both, So I wanted us to be able to take a few minutes to do this test. Here's some questions to ponder on our own. We got 10 minutes left. What type of speech do you struggle with most? Gossip, judgment, sarcasm, jealousy, pride? Around what people or in what situations are you most likely to sin with your words? How do your words reveal sin, fear, lack of faith, or other issues? And then just an assignment to do. Proverbs 27:6, and I'll just tell you the gist of that verse. It says, "Faithful are the wounds of a friend." Listen to that again. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. Brent, you're my friend. And if you see me do something, say something that's out of line, I think you know that you've got my blessing to correct me and to speak truth to me, don't you? That's what that verse means. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. No, it literally says wounds. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. When a friend, do you know somebody that you love and trust enough that person has the power, has the opportunity and the ability to wound you, If I say something that's out of line, Sean, I think you know me well enough. You could offer some correction, and it may sting and hurt. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, though. That's a faithful wound. That's someone that knows me well enough and loves me enough that they know that they can speak truth into my life. So that's just something for you to think about. Do I have a friend that is faithful enough to wound me? And how do I receive that wounding? And look up some different translations, Brent. But that's the way I've memorized it. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. So here's what I'd like us to do for the last 10 minutes of church tonight. I got some work to do. Do you guys have some work to do? I've got some confessing to do. In this time, in this last few minutes of church every Wednesday, it's different. We pray for some different things. And most of the time we're looking outward, which is good. Most of the time we're praying for other people and other people's needs. And we should do that more than we do what we're about to do. But for tonight, I think that this would be good for us to take a few minutes, find a quiet place in this room that is not the seat you're sitting in. You know what I mean? So there's some power about getting up. You get comfortable in the same seat. There's power in finding a new place to go. Corey's going to turn on some music. We're going to sign off on Facebook Live.